But that's the state of affairs, and the cost is extremely high. So let's look at generally speaking, some of the costs of stress. First of all, psychological health. So as I mentioned, there's a causal relationship between stress over a long period of time and depression. Feeling anxious, not a good feeling. This is also associated with physical health, where the price is extremely high. In fact, there are many doctors who say that most of our ailments are as a result of stress, that they're stress-related. And you know it from personal experience. When you go through a stressful period, you very often get sick during or after. Why? Because your immune system is weak or weaker as a result. This is also stress or stress-related illnesses are the number one reason today for losing days of work. So there is a huge price for the economy, not to mention the fact that creativity levels go down when we're experiencing stress. So the price is incredibly high, personally, interpersonally in relationships, as well as nationally and globally. So what do we do about it? First of all, let's see how we address the question of stress. Because the questions that we ask about stress, about this pervasive phenomenon, matter a great deal. Traditional psychology for many years has asked the question, why are so many people stressed? It's an important question, it's a good question, there were interesting answers, but it didn't actually provide answers that were actionable, practical. So positive psychologists took a different approach. And the research in the field of positive psychology, rather than asking the negative question, why are so many people stressed, it asked the positive question, which is, what do those who are successful and able to lead a healthy and happy life do? Because there are such people. You may not like them, but they're there. On the one hand, I could tell, go off to the Himalayas and meditate for 10 years, your stress levels will go down, you'll be happier. Probably. But most of us don't have that luxury or don't want to do it. I don't want to give up my life. You're thinking, I'm fine. Yes, I want to be less stressed, but I don't want to go to the extreme. I want to see what successful people are doing who are still able to lead a healthy and happy life. And if we can identify such people, even if they are the minority, they are the minority. The question is no longer whether or not it's possible. The question becomes, how is it possible? And psychologists, specifically positive psychologists, started to study these individuals who seem to be able to eat the cake and leave it whole, who seem to be able to lead a successful life with ambition, with drive, and at the same time lead a sane, healthy, happy life. So let's learn from them. Let's see what psychologists identified, because they identified some things which are commonsensical, straightforward, some things which are very surprising. To my mind, the most interesting, surprising outcome of the research on this minority, on those who are healthy, happy, and successful, what they found out through studying them is that actually all those years when they were researching stress and people in stress, they were looking in the wrong place. That in fact, stress is not the problem. That in fact, stress is good for us. That it actually makes us stronger, more resilient, and more open, susceptible to happiness. Let's think of the following analogy. Let's say I go to the gym. What happens to my muscles as I'm lifting weights? Not after, as I'm doing it. What am I doing to my muscle? I'm stressing it. What is actually happening on the spot is that there are micro tears in the muscle. So I'm stressing my muscle. Is this a bad thing? No, it's a good thing. Because if I lift weights and the next day I come in and I lift the same weights again, and then I take 2 days off and lift a bit heavier weights, and I build up gradually. After 6 months, I continue lifting weights, more and more weights, gradually, slowly. And I continue and persist for a year. And if you continue and persist for 2 or perhaps 3 years in deliberate practice, hard work in the gym, after 2 or 3 years, you begin to look like me. Why are you laughing? Did I miss something here? More or less. I hope a little bit more. So stress is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. I get stronger, healthier. When do the problems begin? The problems begin when I lift weights, and then 5 minutes later I lift the same weights, and 2 minutes later the same weights, and then I increase the weight, and then the next day I go in again and lift more weights and more weights and more weights. And so on and so on. That's when the problems begin. That's when I get injured. That's when I pull a muscle. So the problem is not the stress. The stress is actually good for us. The problem is the lack of recovery. Whether it's in the gym, physiologically, or in the outside world, psychologically. What healthy, happy, and successful people do is not avoid stress. They experience stress like we all do. It's part and parcel of life, not just modern life. So 5,000 years ago, the stress was that a lion was chasing me. That's pretty stressful. Or that I wasn't be able to gather enough food for the winter months. Today, the stress is the upcoming quarterly reports. We can handle stress. God-given, evolutionary given, we have the ability to handle it and handle it well. The difference between 5,000 years ago or even 50 years ago and today is that then there was a lot more time for recovery. For example, in the form of sleep. You know that until 1879, the average number of hours that people slept was around 10 hours. Today, the average is below 7. What happened in 1879? The light bulb was invented. And we're not listening as much as we did then to our natural rhythms because we have artificial ways of circumventing nature. And that's good, that's a nice thing, but there is also a price to it. The problem in the modern world is not the stress. The problem is that we do not have enough time for recovery.